Hey everybody, welcome back. It's week 3 in the NFL, and of course, we just discussed quarterbacks on the RotoCurve segment for each week. We'll be having videos and articles up for each position for FanDuel, and be sure to take a look at all the other tools there. But let's get right into it. We're talking about running backs here. We're talking about the most efficient position in fantasy football is what you're going to need. You're looking at FanDuel, you start 2 running backs, and you need both those guys to hit, because if they don't, it's really going to be tough on your lineup, because with a low score total or a goose egg, it's going to be very hard to cash in most of your contests. Now, week 3 means there's 2 guys that are coming back this week. Arian Foster should be back, and Le'Veon Bell should be back as well. That's the guy that we'll get into a little bit. So the running back position just got a little bit deeper, so make sure that you can take a deeper look. We'll talk about some guys we like now. And my first tier of running backs this week is none other than Le'Veon Bell. His 2-game suspension is up, and he's going to immediately resume his duties as a top-tier fantasy running back. Mike Tomlin, head coach, came out the other day and said that as soon as Le'Veon Bell steps on the field, he's going to be the bell cow. He's going to be the workhorse. He's going to be the guy that gets a ton of touches. Now, last year we saw him run for over 1,300 yards. He caught over 80 passes for over 800 yards through the air, and he had 11 total touchdowns. So we're looking for him to have an even bigger workload this year, because he is only playing 14 games. And the one thing about that is it's week to week. So, pardon me, if you get to see a guy like that just get that many touches and at a price right now of under $9,000 on FanDuel, he's got to be a great play. Now, the one thing about Bell for this week, for week 3, he actually has a pretty good matchup against the St. Louis Rams. Of course, the Rams have a very good defensive line, but they've allowed the 4th most fantasy points to running backs already this season. So it's one thing to take a look at. Now, if the Steelers cannot run the ball with Bell, that doesn't mean that he's not going to see a lot of production, because he catches a lot of passes. He has the ability to run after the catch, and he's a guy that has the opportunity to get well over 150 total yards each and every week. Not to mention, he's the guy on the goal line, too, because that backup running back in D'Angelo Williams isn't exactly a guy that's going to steal carries from anybody on the goal line, given the fact that he is a faster, shiftier back rather than a big barreling guy that gets into the end zone. So a guy like Bell at 8,800 is definitely worth the top running back spot for me this week. And I think his price is going to be rising a lot in the next coming week. So you're getting him at a discount this week. The other top-tier guy I like is Marshawn Lynch, of course. The one thing about the Seattle Seahawks offense is it flows through him, so we don't really need to discuss him just because he's a top option each week, but he is another guy I like in that top tier if you choose to bet on running backs. In the second tier, I like Latavius Murray for the Oakland Raiders. He's gone low-owned and pretty much under the radar so far this season, but both weeks he's had have been very solid. In week 1, he had 80 total yards on 11 carries, and he caught 7 passes, which FanDuel is a half-point PPR system, so you get those bonus points. In that week 1 matchup with all those yards and catches, he had 11.5 fantasy points. And in week 2, he ran for 65 yards and a touchdown while catching 3 more passes for over 20 yards. So Murray is the feature in that Oakland Raiders offense. He's going to see a lot of carries, and we're actually seeing him used a lot in the passing game too, which is good to see for his fantasy value. In week 3, he's going to be facing the Cleveland Browns, who in week 1 allowed the New York Jets to rush for over 155 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, last week they were pretty good stopping the Titans' rushing attack, but the Titans run the ball a lot more different than the Jets did. And the one thing about Latavius Murray and the Raiders, they run similar to the Jets with a big offensive line, a big running back like Murray, who's at 6'2", 6'3", 240 pounds. He's also very fast. So you're seeing a guy that's a physical freak, a good offensive line in front of him with guys like Gabe Jackson in the middle. So you can look at a little bit of a similar matchup as the Jets. And you see what the Jets did to the Browns? There's no reason why Murray can't do that as well. The other guys in this tier I like are on the other side is Isaiah Crowell. We want to use him in GPPs, obviously spending time with Duke Johnson. And I do like Doug Martin, as he seems to be running the ball a lot, and he has the volume to catch the passes as well, which makes him a very solid option in the tier 2 running back. The third tier running back for me for this week is a guy that I will be using a lot in GPPs, and that's Joseph Randle for Dallas at 6,500. Tony Romo has a broken collarbone. He's out for 8 weeks. Des Bryant might not play again this season, and if he does, it'll be late in the season with a broken foot. The Cowboys' offense is falling apart, but they still have one very good and very important thing, and that's a very talented offensive line. guys like Smith in the middle. You have the left guard, Lyle Collins is finally playing now, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin. They have a full stock of offensive linemen. They're just very good in the running game. And that's exactly why I like Randall this week, because he's going to be the feature of this offense. We saw that the Cowboys may use a running back by committee with Darren McFadden, Lance Dunbar catching passes. But Randall has 34 carries in 2 games, with carries of 18 last week and 16 in week 1. And you've seen him be the guy pretty much for entire drives. He's not coming out. He's catching a few passes. So considering the fact that he's playing behind one of the better offensive lines in football, and Tony Romo and Des Bryant are out, I think he's going to see a lot of action. And behind that line, he has a chance to get over 100 yards and a touchdown. He faces the Atlanta Falcons, who actually have allowed the most fantasy points to running backs so far this season. So Randall does have a very good matchup. I just discussed I expect him to run the ball a lot. And if Dunbar doesn't see a lot of snaps, you're going to see Randall catch a lot of passes as well. That means that he has a chance to score on first down as a run, second down as a run, and he's going to be the guy in the game on third downs as well. Dunbar doesn't see as many snaps. So the one thing about Randall is you're going to get him at a cheap price of $6,500, and considering the fact that he's going to be the feature of this offense, he makes for a very good play in tournaments. And I actually do like him in cash a little bit as well with a good matchup, but he's a top tournament play for me because he has the opportunity to get well over 100 yards and maybe a touchdown or 2. The other 2 cheap guys I like are Devontae Freeman, who will be starting this week with Tevin Coleman's injury, and I really like LeGarrette Blount this week. Now, I talked about Randall as a GPP option. Blount is a GPP-only option for me because simply you can't trust those Patriots running backs because you're not exactly sure what Belichick's going to do. This should be a Blount game, but the second half of last week should have been a Blount game as well. We didn't see that happen. So just wrapping up running backs real quick, I like Joseph Randall as a cheap option. I like Latavius Murray. It's a second-tier option, and my top back on the week is Le'Veon Bell. So wrapping up this segment and the other segments, be sure to check them all out on RotoCurve.com. We have a ton of tools you can use. We have a ton of numbers, a whole bunch of data, and everything you can be used is for free. So be sure to go over there, check it out, and let's get your DFS research off to a hot start. And let's continue your trends and winning in week 3. And let's hopefully make NFL this week another profitable one. Good luck, everybody.